Hello everyone, thanks for joining us on this Wednesday and welcome to this educational presentation of the path to consistency starts with these two methods. I'm going to share with you a really extremely simple way to trade with consistency and how it's applied on our platform. But first of all, let's look at this chart and I'll show you how most traders have trouble when trying to analyze a chart in front of them. For example, someone would look at this older chart of MAN and say to themselves, well, we're kind of in a range. Now we have support right here where all the banks and institutions, so that's a good place to buy. But at the same time, we have resistance right here as well. So obviously we are in some type of a range, and you can stay away from a range market, or you can try and anticipate it. Every time we get to the bottom, you anticipate a buying opportunity. And as we are right now currently, every time we get to the top of that range or the resistance, that's where you want to sell. So you say to yourself, I'm going to sell right here, because most likely, since we're in this established range, we'll come all the way back down here. I'll cover and I'll go long. And so you decide to sell, and just when you think you figured it out, this happens, right? Well, in today's presentation, I'm going to share with you a simple but very powerful process that actually would have generated not a sell signal right here, but looking back in hindsight, when you thought you were in a range, it actually would have generated all of these buy signals. Now, on top of that, we see that some of these buy signals are better than others. For example, had you taken this buy signal, well, it most likely would have turned into a loss. These ones would have been okay. This one would have turned into a loss, and so forth. Well, with this simple two-step process, you actually would have been able to filter out most of the signals there that really would have generated too much, and kept you in a really nice signal down here, so that you could have taken advantage of that range and maybe got out at the top, or held longer to take advantage of this nice 18 points in just 2 or 3 weeks. And you're going to see that this process is applicable on our platform. This is the PTS Primo charting platform, the new educational platform that actually makes trading simple. So welcome once again. My name is Steven Primo, president and founder of Specialist Trading. I teamed up with Pro Trader Strategies just about 10, almost 11 years ago with one goal in mind, and that was simply to educate traders around the world. That is really what's missing. You've heard me say this a million times this past year, but it really is. We get so many students on a daily basis from around the world. We have students all over the world and in every state in the United States, and everyone basically comes in saying the same thing, where they'll say, Steve, I've spent so much money, thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm almost afraid to admit how much I've spent. And nothing seems to work. I bought these magic systems that are supposed to really generate huge results. And maybe I had a couple of trades that worked out okay, but everything ultimately fell apart. Or else I'm using this magic tool or this indicator, I have no idea what it's based off of, or I'm listening to some guy in a chat room and nothing seems to be working. If you look at the common denominator, what most traders do, and myself included, because I've been trading for going on 43 years now, I did the exact same thing, is when you're having a tough time, you think that someone or someone else must know all the answers, right? So you give them all your hard-earned money, so supposedly they know what to do, and you just blindly follow them. And that's really where most traders fail, because you've taken yourself out of the game, and you're hopefully relying on someone that's got all the answers, right? And that really is a recipe for disaster. I did the same thing, trust me. And I'm ashamed to admit how much money I spent and how much money I lost doing the same thing 43 years ago when I first started trading. So nothing really has changed in over 4 decades. So that's where Specialist Trading and Pro Trader Strategies comes in. If there's one thing I've learned in over 4 decades, it's that is the perfect way to become a non-consistent trader. That is the perfect way to lose money, by just taking yourself out of the game. So it stands to reason then, what is the perfect way to become consistent? That's by making your own trading decisions. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of companies or aren't a lot of websites that actually do that for you, that give you that edge. What they do is they say, listen, we know what to do, just follow us and you'll be retiring in the next year. And that's really why most traders fail. Where we differ is that we don't promise to have anything that's going to, make you retire, or that's going to buy that extra home for you. Only thing we provide is sound fundamental education, tools, strategies, techniques that have stood the test of time, that I continue to use in my own personal trading. So these are the things that will sustain you. But it's not about me, telling you what to buy or what to sell. It's about me teaching you these things so that you can decide. We have no statistics of Specialist Trading because we encourage everyone to trade differently. Two students may get the exact same signal. 3 or 4 students may get the exact same signal, act on it, and come up with entirely different results. And that's okay. We encourage this because that means you're making your own decision. And, most of them have positive results, but someone may have made a half a point, maybe a point. Someone may have made 18 points the way you saw. There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is when you take yourself out of the game. So this is the purpose behind our websites, to simply educate you so that you can be in charge of your own trading destiny. In my 43 years of trading, this is the only way one can become a consistent trader, not by blindly following someone or some system and just taking the signals. Okay, so you'll see today a great educational process that I really feel strongly will be able to lead you on that road to consistency. But as always, prior to showing you what this process is, we have to share with you this disclaimer. So please take a moment to view it. I'm going to show you a lot of performance results with this two-step process. But please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of the results I'm about to share with you will be repeated in the future. And also please remember that all examples are strictly for educational purposes only. As you're taking a brief moment to view our disclaimer, once again, if you haven't done so already, I invite all of you to follow us on Twitter. There's a lot more education you can get from us on our Twitter page. I post different things from little bits of financial wisdom to signals our strategies have generated, and lots of slides sharing with you different ways to educate you on our platform. So lots of great free information, educational information. Feel free to follow us on Twitter. Now remember, once again, we are first and foremost an educational company. We're not here to promise you that we have a system that has only failed once in the last 10 years, or that our statistics are unbelievable, the win-loss ratio is 90%. I don't believe in that, because once again, that requires everyone to trade the exact same way. And that is what is really behind the losses of most traders. No two traders should ever trade alike. So if you've come here today thinking that I'm going to tell you what to buy as soon as this concludes in about an hour or so, or if I'm going to tell you what the perfect market is or the perfect time frame, you've really come to the wrong place. We don't believe in that. And really the reason why is because that's a recipe for a disaster. That's what's behind most traders failing these days. As you can see here, my goal is not to force feed you signals, is not to tell you what the perfect market or time frame is. My goal is simply to teach you how to trade with the specialist edge. And the reason why I want to teach you is so that once you learn these things, you can make your own decision. A good mentor does not trade for you. A good mentor teaches you how to trade so that you can do it on your own. Now, trust me, I know how difficult it is to, grasp this concept. When I was struggling and I had my mentors on the floor, they were specialists themselves, I said the same thing probably a lot of you are saying. Well, why can't you just tell me what you're buying or selling? Why can't you tell me where you get in and where you get out? And they said the same thing that I'm saying, because you should find your own way. Because once they leave, or once you're on your own, how are you going to know how to trade? And on top of that, they may have different risk parameters than I have. They may want to stay in a trade much longer than I want to stay in, or vice versa. So you can't mimic and copy someone else who has different persona traits in their style of trading. You have to go and find your own way. Now the beauty is, we can all still see and find and identify the high probability setups, but how we choose to enter, how we choose to exit, and how we choose to place our stops is entirely up to us. So that's what we've got to do. The good news is that's what we provide. We provide you with all this information to help you make your own decision going into the next year, okay? Now, since this is a class, remember, ask me as many questions as you like. But please wait till the end to ask questions. That way you won't be here for the next 3 or 4 hours having to listen through all my questions being answered. Many times you wait for the next slide and your question is answered right away, okay? Now the only question I'm going to answer is the most common, and that is this being recorded? Yes, it is. We record all of our webinars, so if you have to leave early, if you're having technical issues, don't worry, we will provide each and every one of you with a link to today's presentation, okay? So remember, if you have a question, kindly wait. We have a good crowd here today, so I don't want to take all the time stopping every 5 minutes to answer a question. Just write it down or try to remember it, all right? All right, with that said, let's begin. And this is actually a continuation. If you saw my presentation that I did last week, because we give weekly free webinars, educational webinars, this is a continuation of what I talked about last week. Now, last week was a very simple, basic process for capturing consistency. Today, I'm going to take it up a notch by being able to filter out some of those setups and try and pick the best ones, okay? A little bit more aggressive way in which to trade what we talked about last week. So we're going to be once again talking about strategy number 4. This is probably my favorite strategy. I've been trading this in some capacity every day for the last 40 years now. This is my go-to strategy. It's our most popular strategy. The beauty of strategy number 4, if we look at some of these highlights, is that it's designed for traders looking to catch momentum. And if you want to catch that momentum and stay in the trade a couple of minutes, that's fine. If you want to stay in a couple of weeks, a couple of years, that's fine. We have ways in which to do that. It's a pattern recognition strategy. We're not looking for anything based on news or earnings reports or jobless claims. We don't, it's not required. We don't look at that information. It's not based on some really convoluted indicator. In fact, it only uses one indicator, and I'll tell you what that is. It's the 50-period moving average. We also call that our buy-sell line, all right? So basically, the core of this strategy is this pattern, which we teach you how to identify in the course, okay, our online course. So it's all structured around this pattern, which I'm sorry, I can't divulge. It wouldn't be fair to all of our students around the world who are currently trading strategy number 4. But this pattern occurs over and over and over again, regardless of what market you're looking at, regardless of what time frame, and regardless of what direction. You're going to see this pattern over and over again. So even though today's slides may have a propensity for looking at stocks, don't worry. I mean, I personally trade this pattern on E-mini futures. You can also find it on Bitcoin. You can find it on commodities. You can find it on currency pairs. You can find it in an hourly time frame. You can find it in a monthly time frame. You can find it in a daily or a 5-minute or a 12-bar tick chart. It makes no difference. This pattern occurs over and over again. And so that's why a lot of our students love strategy number 4 to get started with, because it generates a lot of signals in a lot of different markets. So if you like to trade currency pairs along with stocks, this is great because it'll be able to fit both those markets. So this strategy can be applied to any market, any time frame, and any direction. All right, so let's look at just some strategy 4 examples. First of all, just to show you how this works. Basically, we'll look at a chart right here. There's an older chart in QCOM. And by the way, we're going to start showing you some older charts just so you understand the process. Later on in the presentation, I'll show you a couple of setups that you could have taken advantage of last week that generated 100% gains. All right, but let's just start out looking at this older chart in QCOM. Once again, looks like a sideways chart, right? Absolutely nothing going on here. We click on strategy number 4 on our platform. Now, we teach you how to identify this pattern. So this is not a black box. Once again, that goes entirely against our teaching principles. What we do is we teach you how to identify this in the course, and you must study it on your own by paper trading. And how you check your work is by applying our platform. This is why I developed a platform with Pro Trader Strategy, so that you could have this as an educational tool. So let's say you spot one or so many signals here on this chart in front of you, okay? In order to check your work to see if you're properly identifying them, you click on Strategy 4. In the drop-down menu, click on Signal Arrows, and you'll see that you were right. You actually had 3 signals that were generated here, okay? Now, as you can see, you had one earlier in the month. You had a couple of months later, but ultimately you had a 35-point gain with this. Now, someone could say, well, how did you know that was going to go up 35 points? We don't predict how high or how low something will go. Remember, we just furnish you with different entry points, different exit points, and different stop placements. That's why we say everyone should trade according to their own means. Now, someone could have taken the very first signal right here and gotten out maybe here with a couple of points and said, thank you, I'm going to look for another setup. That's fine. Someone could have taken this signal and used one of our exit points right here with this day and said, okay, I'm taking a nice 15, 20-point gain, I'm out. Or someone could have stayed in and said, I'm going in for the long haul. I want to go for 40 or 50 points using this exit strategy. There is nothing wrong with either one. Now, let's look at another scenario. Someone could have taken this example here and said, okay, I missed this first one. I'm going to take this second one, and had a very, very tight stop, maybe right below that signal. And they would have been stopped out, okay? And so they had a loss, a small minor loss, but then they take the second one and they gain it back and make it all back and then some. Whereas someone could have said, you know what, I have a lot more account I can work with. I have a lot more risk I can take on. So I'll use a wide risk and place my stop down here using one of our many stop levels. All right. And in this case, if they use that wide risk stop parameter, they would have never been stopped out. Do you see how I say we don't have statistics, we don't have win-loss ratios, we don't have worst-case scenario drawdowns, because everyone is encouraged to trade according to their own means. If this were a system, everyone would have to trade the exact same way. And that's how you come up with statistics. That goes entirely against our philosophy of specialist trading and pro trader strategies. We do not want you to trade the same way. You have to trade according to your own means. If you have small risk parameters, great, use the tight stop. If you have large risk parameters, great, use a wider stop. The beauty is our methods are consistent. So if you used a very tight stop here, sure, you would have been stopped out. But you have to get back in because many times the very next signal can make back that small loss you had and then even more, as you see right here. All right, this works to the downside on an older chart in Tesla. As we see here, sure, in hindsight, we're going much, much lower. But the way most traders trade is we see a bottom or a double bottom being made here. We want to buy. And sure, it goes up for a couple of days and then we get stopped out. And then you say to yourself, well, wow, maybe I got in too early, so I'll buy here. Goes up for a couple more days and then makes lower lows. This is the way we're always taught. Buy low, sell high. But if you really want to be a consistent trader, once you find out what the overall trend is, in this case it's down, what you want to do is sell low and buy back lower, okay? Now look what strategy number 4 did. If you're identifying some signals, you just click on strategy 4 in the drop-down menu, click on the arrows to check your work, and guess what? Look at all these signals that were generated, okay? Had you taken the very first one up here, potentially you could have captured 130 points. Once again, it's up to you if you wanted to stay in that long. You could have just said, well, you know what, I'm going to, make 1 or 2 points and get out. It's entirely up to you. All right, now here's that first example we shared with you in MAN, all right? Look at all the signals that were generated. Obviously, some were a lot better than others. How can we filter this out, okay? We want to take what we feel are the high probability setups because strategy number 4 generates a lot of signals. And this is the one that actually had the highest level of probability because we bought it towards the low and then it went straight up from there, okay? And potentially we could have captured a full 18 points. So how could we have done that? Well, and filter out these, okay? The first thing we want to do is click on our buy-sell line. This is step 2 in this process of achieving consistency and filtering out. We're going to remember, this is very similar to what I taught you last week, but now we're taking it up a notch and showing you another way to trade, which has a little higher level of consistency, but it's a little bit more aggressive. So the risk may be there as well. But let me show you what I mean here. We click on our buy-sell line, and in the drop-down menu, well, you won't see this, but here's our consistency tip. Some of the most consistent setup signals may be generated closest to and or touching the fluid buy-sell line. So this is what we want to do. When we click on the buy-sell line, and we see this drop-down menu, we want to click on fluid, okay? And this is what we talked about before. Here's the fluid buy-sell line. Now, before we were looking at the slope of the fluid buy-sell line, we were looking at, making sure that that was going up. Here, we're going to not worry about that. We're going to show you an entirely different technique where we're only going to take the signals that are closest to or touching. It does not matter what the slope of the buy-sell line is. All right, this is an entirely different process. And you can choose for yourself which one you like to trade more. Remember, we're just providing information for you. It's up to you to decide what feels best for you. Now, as we see here, this is the closest one and touching. It was touching the buy-sell line. This is how we made the choice to take this and potentially capture 18 points. You see, all these were not touching away or close, but not close enough for us. We wanted something maybe touching there. And that's how we took advantage of this two-step process. So we're combining strategy number 4 along with our fluid buy-sell line, and we're only going to take the signals that are either touching or very close to that fluid buy-sell line. Now, before we were, remember, last week we were concerned with the slope, and we only wanted to take signals that had that strong slope, either up or down. Now we're taking it up a notch, and we're saying, no, we're only taking signals that are touching. We're not concerned with the slope anymore. This is an entirely different little method. As we look here at Tesla, we see here that we have a number of signals. Some are better than others. For example, this was a great sell. This was another great one. But look at these ones right here. This one, you would have maybe gotten short. It was good for a little bit and then went right back up. You may have gotten stopped out. So what we want to do is take advantage of this one, because this would have been the best one to take, right? At the very top. Well, we apply the buy-sell line, click on fluid, and look at this. This was the only sell setup that was touching. And this had the highest potential for gain because it was right at the very top. Now, all these other signals, this was a good one. These were good ones too, or this one was a good one. This one was a good one. This one was a good one. But this had the highest potential for capturing that point. Why? Because it was touching. And as you can see, the buy-sell line wasn't going up when it was touching. So I know a lot of you may say, well, Steve, last week you said the opposite. No, I didn't say the opposite. I was giving you an entirely different technique. We always show different techniques. It's up to you to decide what you feel most comfortable with. All right, so let's look at some more examples. Some will be older examples. Some will be newer examples the last couple of weeks. And once again, towards the end, I'll show you something that happened last week. All right, we're looking at an example here in STNE. Okay, we have a number of strategy number 4 examples right here, buy signals. Which ones should we have taken? Well, these have the highest potential for most gain, right? Looking back in hindsight, but how would we have known that? Well, you add the buy-sell line, and you can see we were just about touching. We weren't touching it, but look at the slope. The slope was going down. But because we were very close to it, these were the high probability setups. Now, this was also a good signal, but it wasn't touching. Even though it had the nice strong slope, that's okay. This one had the highest potential, or these two, I should say. How about WBA? A number of sell signals generated using strategy number 4. This is the one that held the highest potential. How did we know? Because once we add the buy-sell line, look, it was touching. And if you missed that, guess what? Another one was touching right here, okay? So taking this one, potentially you could have captured 20 points. See, we're looking for setups that have a high potential for consistency, okay? Now, someone could say, well, Steve, look at, I have some original buy setups here, then I have some sell setups. Which ones do I take? Well, this takes all of that doubt out of choosing which ones to take, because this would have been the best buy setups, these two right here, and then this one would have been the best sell setup. Once you add the fluid buy-sell line, you see that these two were touching for potentially capturing 12 points, much better than this signal right here. And then this was touching for potentially capturing 25 points. Now remember, it's always the signals that are touching or as close to. So this one, if you miss this, this was very close as well. This is where the discretion comes on your part. And by discretion, we mean your insight and your experience after trading this or paper trading this for a while. You can tell on your own whether it's close enough or not. Remember, you make the decision. None of the things we teach in our courses are systematic, meaning that they have to have a clear-cut set of rules that cannot be violated. No, we want you to follow something that is rule-based, but we also want to give you 25 or 30% discretion to apply, because that means you're part of the process. So someone could have said, well, I don't want to take this, it wasn't close enough. And someone could have said, for my being, that's close enough, I'll take it. It's up to you. All right, here's another example here. This was in TGT. I believe this happened this last month in November. We were very close and 19 points. And someone said, well, how did you know it was going to gap up? We didn't know. But the market tells us through this pattern based on strategy number 4. The only thing the fluid buy-sell line is doing is setting up for these high probability signals, the ones that are closest to or touching the fluid buy-sell line. As we look at UTHR, we see here that this is what we mean by consistency. Consistency is an awareness that not every setup will generate a profit. For example, here was a buy signal that was generated, and it was touching the fluid buy-sell line. Had you taken that and used a standard stop, you most likely would have lost 5 points. This is where most traders play the victim game. After their first loss, most likely it's on their very first trade, they'll say to themselves, well, this stuff doesn't work. That guy, Steve Primo, is like all the rest. He just sells me something that doesn't work. I followed all the rules he said. It's touching the buy-sell line. So I'm going to throw this thing out the window. I'm going to stop using it. Consistency is an awareness that you will have losses from time to time. But consistent methods are able to recoup those losses. If you want to go sit in the corner and sulk, you would have missed the very next setup, which was a sell setup that met the same requirements by touching the fluid buy-sell line. Had you taken that, you could have easily made back the 5 points you just lost 2 days ago and gotten back in, potentially captured 25. So don't worry if you have losses. Worry that you do not have a consistent method. Someone could say, well, how do I know the method's consistent? Well, look at that $5,000 online course you took, or the $5,000 or $10,000 class you took. And when you have a number of cells, or losses, I should say, that generate upwards of 5, 10, 15, 20 losses in a row, that's not consistency. Consistency is a two-step forward, one-step back approach. The one step back means you will have losses. The two-step forward meaning that you have the gains that are able to recoup those losses. Here's another example right here as we look at this consistency in Tiffany, okay? Now, looking back in hindsight, we see that, wow, this thing took off. I think there were buyout rumors at this point. But had you taken the very first buy signal, well, look what happened. A quick 5-point loss. But you have to stay in the game because another signal was generated about a week later, and that's where you could have recouped it and potentially captured 40 points. As we look at GH, we see here that really two nice signals are generated. The first one, you had to wait a little bit. The second one, it took off the minute it was generated, and potentially you could have captured 68 points in GH, okay? All because the strategy generated a buy setup based off this pattern, but these signals that are closest to or touching have the highest potential for gain. Now, these were not bad signals either, but they're an entirely different way of trading the strategy number 4. Here's an example in BIDU, all right, a sell signal. Now, if we look at the old method, we see that, but Steve, sell signals, I thought this is supposed to be headed strongly downward. Well, this is not, but it's an entirely different method. All we're interested in is that it's touching. And had you taken this, potentially you could have captured 50 points to the downside. Here are two signals, strategy number 4 signals in ROK that were generated in October. Okay, they're touching, they're both touching. Now, this took a while, all right? It didn't happen right off the bat, but in the next month or so, you could have potentially captured 50 points to the upside. Now, here were two other signals here that were generated. They both would have been winners, but you wouldn't have had the greatest potential for capturing gains there. Another example in EL, look at all the signals that were generated. Some are better than others. Some were away from the buy-sell line. Others were touching the fluid buy-sell line. If you want to filter out all of these signals, especially here, as you can see, even though you're going straight up, for example, some of these signals were better than others. Had you taken this signal, you would have had a couple of days of upside, and then look what happened. You would have been stopped out. But if you use the technique I'm sharing with you today, here's a buy setup you could have taken advantage of, a nice signal. Here's another one you could have taken advantage of, touching the buy-sell line. And then lastly, you could have taken advantage of 2 more, okay? Potentially, you could have captured upwards of 70 points. All right, let's look at this example here in OC, okay? Obviously, in hindsight, we've been going lower. When we add strategy number 4, when we use the process, remember, we teach you what to look for. This is not a system where you just simply click on the platform and say, okay, I want it to tell me what to buy or sell. We don't believe in that, and we didn't create this for that purpose. We created it for you to check your work. Our ultimate goal is to get you at the same point where I am, where you simply have to look at a chart and say, oh, there's a sell signal, there's a buy signal. That's what we want to get you. We don't want you to have to rely on these up and down arrows. But until you get to that point, click on strategy 4. In the drop-down menu, click on signal arrows, and you can check your work with the fluid buy-sell line. And you can see we have a number of sell signals, but none of these are using the requirements of the method I'm teaching you today. They're all far away from the fluid buy-sell line until we get to these two right here. So you would have bypassed all of these signals and taken these two, and in about a week or so, potentially capture 17 points. So even though these would have been some nice trades, if you're the type of trader that likes to catch that quick momentum, well, then you'd wait for a signal to be touching the fluid buy-sell line. Here's another one in FFIV, all right? Wasn't touching, but very close to the fluid buy-sell line. Could have taken that, and in a couple of weeks, 18 points potentially could have captured. You see how simple this process is. All you need is our platform to identify the fluid buy-sell line and have the rules for strategy number 4, pattern recognition. Now, here's an example in DLTR. This was in middle of November. Now, you can see here, we had a couple of signals generated to go long DLTR, and they would have been okay. Not would have, captured a lot, but you still wouldn't have most likely lost. you would have had to use an exit that got you out rather quickly. But looking at this one, if you use this technique I'm sharing with you today, you would have had a sell signal right here and potentially captured 22 points coming into the first week of this month, December. Here's another example of consistency, an older chart in Tiffany, a 4-point loss using this buy signal, but you have to get back in because a sell signal was generated 2 days later, which could have made back that 4 points and potentially captured another 15 or 16 points to the downside. They're both using strategy number 4. One of the signals worked, the other one didn't, but the beauty is the one that did work had the potential to make back your losses. Now, here's something that recently happened in MDCO, okay? I believe another buyout candidate. Look at how it went up, and then it went up even higher. Now, this is one of the reasons students are always sending me emails saying, Steve, I don't understand. You don't follow any fundamental news about buyouts, about earnings, or about companies. So how do you guys generate these signals where you know prior to a buyout or to an announcement that you're on the right side? Well, we don't. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're on the right side of every news announcement, but it's been my experience that the market usually tells you in advance what it wants to do. And usually when these announcements come out, you're on the right side already. For example, we had a couple of buy signals right here, and these most likely would have generated losses. But we're not using this technique. We're using this one where they have to be touching the fluid buy sell line. So as you waited for these signals, you could have been in just days before the announcements and potentially captured 30 points. Here are 2 more examples in BIDU. Here is a sell signal right here that could have captured roughly about 20 points. And here's another one that was generated that was quickly going to the downside. Looking at a longer term in SHAK and SHAK, 50 points potentially you could have captured by only taking the signals that were closest to or touching the fluid buy sell line. There were a lot of other signals generated, and they were all profitable, but this filters out, all of these. If you just want to take these high probability ones, wait for the signal to be touching or close to the fluid buy sell line. It works on the downside as well. In TLRY, 2 sell signals are generated right here. Could have bypassed these ones and then taken another one, potentially capturing 55 points to the downside. This is extremely simple. And we look at UI. Another setup right here, a buy signal generated. This was in the first week in November. Not touching, but very close to the buy sell line, the fluid buy sell line. And then after that, off to the races, coming into December, up 70 points. Now let's look at some different time frames. Let's say you're a swing trader or like to look at weekly charts, maybe even intraday. Let's look at this is a weekly chart, as you can see here, a weekly chart of Apple. This is an older chart of Apple. As you can see, we were just about touching. We had a buy signal generated using strategy number 4. Here's the pattern. All right, it generated a buy signal. Now, if someone say, well, Steve, the fluid buy sell line is going flat to downward, that's okay. We're using this technique now. And it generated nearly 70 points in the next month. If we look at MO, here's a weekly chart. Once again, we had some nice signals generated, but we only want to take the ones closest to or touching, which would have been these 2, and 18 points in the next couple of months. Let's look at an hourly chart, an older chart in Facebook. Okay, look at the signals generated here. Had you taken this signal, guess what? Most likely a loss. Had you taken this one? Another loss. But if you wait for this technique I'm sharing with you today for the signal that's touching the fluid buy sell line, here's the one you would have taken, and in the next day, roughly 7 points. Remember, this is an intraday trade of Facebook on an hourly time frame. Here's a 4-hour chart of the euro dollar. Okay, the same process works on other markets. It makes absolutely no difference. Here's a sell signal generated, and it's touching or just very close to the fluid buy sell line. All right, so you would have taken that sell signal, 125 pips in the next week. All right, that's over $1,200 potentially you could have captured in the euro dollar. And then lastly, here's the market I usually trade. Here's a 5-minute chart of the E-mini futures. Okay, we have 2 setups right here touching the fluid buy sell line. We could have taken that one, and if we wanted to, taken this one as well for potentially capturing 8 points in the next hour or 2. That's $400 per contract. Okay. potentially you could have captured. So you see, it's not just stocks, it's not just daily bars, it could be weekly, it could be intraday E-mini futures, or it could be currency pairs. It makes absolutely no difference. This pattern reoccurs over and over and over again. All right, so let's recap before we go into the question and answer portion. Remember, in order to follow this two-step process, we click on the signal arrows. Even though you know what to look for, this is the way you teach yourself how to properly identify valid setups. And once you click on the signal arrows of strategy number 4, then you click on the buy-sell line to see if any of these signals are touching or closest to the fluid buy-sell line, because you want the fluid feature on your platform. Lastly, you only want to choose the signals that are closest to or touching that fluid buy-sell line. This is an extremely simple way to trade strategy number 4, but it holds high level of potential for probability signals to the upside or downside, depending on what market or what direction you're trading. Now remember, the only way you can apply this process is by using our PTS Primo charting platform. That's why we designed this, so you could learn how to trade, and we could make it extremely simple and fun at the same time. So, in closing, we have a great discount for all the people attending today for taking time out of your Wednesday. We are going to offer you a great package. We're going to offer you strategy number 4, instant course access, okay? You're going to get detailed instruction. Remember, this is not a system, it's a strategy. A strategy is rule-based, just like a system, but only about 70 to 75% is rule-based. The other 25% we leave for your discretion. So someone would say, what do you mean by discretion? Well, discretion in terms of how do you want to exactly enter? How do you want to exit? How do you want to place your stop? And as you can see here, we give you multiple ways of entering, exiting, and placing your stop in the course, okay? You will also receive the automatic buy and sell arrows, the complete course rules, add-ons available. So if you want to apply this to your current platform, let's say Metastock or TradeStation, along with any other number of platforms, you can do this. You can have the up and down arrow so you can properly identify where these signals have been generated to help you learn what to look for. But you won't get the availability of using that fluid buy-sell line, because that is only available on our platform. So if you choose just to apply this to your own platform, that's fine. We'll give you the add-ons to upload onto your platform so that you can see the up and down arrows. But we're going to kick it up a notch. We're going to offer you the PTS Primo charting platform that makes this process extremely simple. Now, we're going to throw in 12 months of our platform with this deal. Now, 12 months usually runs over $1,100, close to $1,200. We're not going to charge you that. In fact, we're going to throw in 12 months completely free. You're going to get a full year of the platform for free. Now, someone could say, well, that's great, Steve, but what do I get? I just get strategy number 4, up and down arrows, along with the fluid buy-sell line. That's it, right? Nope. You get so many more features. You're also going to get our strength of trend tool. This is a tool I developed with Pro Trader Strategies, which has a unique ability to often find out if a trend is running out of gas or it still has some momentum left in it. So you can see if you want to stay in the trade longer or if it's getting close to the time to get out. We also throw in our signal scanner. So if you're not able to be in front of your computer all the time, you can come home from work and scan for signals on a nightly basis. We also have over 90 of the most prominent technical indicators, so you can, tinker under the hood, so to say, and experiment with your own ideas and different ways in which to apply the process. We have free Bloomberg TV to check out to see if you must use, fundamental news. We're not going to tell you can't, so we offer it so that you can watch earnings or jobless claims or fundamental news as it's occurring. And lastly, this comes with great personalized tech support. Okay. Now, these are just a few of the features. There's so many more features included, things I've accumulated that you'll find on no other platform, that are only on the PTS Primo charting platform. Okay. Let's break this down. All right. Strategy number 4. My favorite strategy, which I use on just about a daily basis. That's our most common strategy that we have students around the world trading this. This runs for $6.95, the complete video course rules. But we're also, remember, with this special offer, throwing in 12 months of the platform. Now, the platform will generally cost close to $1,200. If you purchase these two separately, it would normally cost you over $1,800, close to $1,900, all right? We're not going to charge you that. We're only going to charge you $6.95 for the cost of strategy number 4. We're going to throw in the platform entirely free. You're going to save over $1,100. That's an over 60% discount. That is a phenomenal deal for getting such high information that can really help you take your trading to that next level. If you're still not convinced yet, let me share with you some things that just recently happened. All right. Yahoo Finance reported that Sanofi is acquiring a cancer drug developer. Okay. The Parisian pharma giant Sanofi, I believe it's pronounced, SNY, got into the Biotech Cancer Treatment Act today, agreeing to buy SoCal's Synthorx, or THOR, a firm that treats solid tumors, okay? So this was just on December 9th. This was just this Monday. So this news came out, and the stock went up tremendously based off this news. As we can see here, the news came out this day right here. This is, as I was talking about before, this is where students love to play the victim game, saying, how come I couldn't find that out? How come I never get information like this? That chat room I went to, they always get me into stocks that don't do anything, or that system I was using actually shorted this. I lost a ton of money. Well, let's see how this process I shared with you today could have helped. All right. As you can see here, a sell signal was actually generated. This, once again, is where students say, Steve, your stuff doesn't work. You went short a stock that got bought out. Well, sure. If you wanted to take that signal, you would have sold. Maybe bought the puts, maybe actually shorted the stock. It's entirely up to you. But that only would have lasted for a short amount of time, because guess what? 2 days later, the process reversed and would have had you getting out of the sell signal and going long. So you would have had two signals. One was a sell and one was a buy. When we add the fluid buy-sell line, we see that they were both touching, as you can see. So you would have actually, if you were following the process diligently, you would have taken both of these setups. Now, had you taken the very first signal, you would have lost a whole whopping 3 points, all right, based on a standard, not our tightest stop, but a very standard stop that, most traders would be using initially. And 3 points is not a lot. We realize no one likes to take a loss, but guess what? 3 points would have been your loss on that first trade. Had you been diligent and got back in, you think you could have made back that 3 points? Because in the next month, coming into this last week, you would have had to potentially been able to capture 52 points. All right, this just happened in the past week. Now, we're not stopping there. Still not convinced how this could have helped you. Let's look at this example and ARQL. All right, once again, we have a big gap up based on some news, most likely a fundamental buyout or some fantastic news on the company. Let's see what strategy number 4 would have done with this, okay? Remember, we teach you what to look for, and there were actually 3 signals that were generated. Let's say you were able to spot them all, but you weren't sure which ones you should have taken. Well, we add the fluid buy-sell line, and we see that all 3 were valid setups. Now, this was an inexpensive stock, so most likely you would have been able to purchase this. I believe a $9 stock. And if you held this up until this week, that would have, potentially been able to generate a 100% gain in less than 3 weeks. Okay, this is something that potentially, had you on your own, your decision, not mine. All we do is provide you with this high probability setups. How you want to trade it is your decision. This would have potentially given you a 100% gain if you decided to stay in. So do you see how powerful these techniques are that we teach our students? Once again, our job as your mentor is to provide you with this information so that you can make your own decisions. Trust me, a year from today, you will have wished you took this course, especially at this great discount. Okay? Remember, it's only $6.95. Here's how to take advantage of this great offer. Okay? Because Pro Trader Strategies, my sister site, they handle all of the discounts and the pricing. They can work with you on this. If $6.95 is still a little bit too much out of your means, don't worry. They can set up a payment plan. I would strongly suggest calling them at 310-598-6677. They have trading consultants manning the phones. They would be happy to set up a payment plan with you, or at least give you the information on what it takes, and you can decide from there. But trust me, there's absolutely no obligation to call them. They would be happy to answer any of your questions concerning payment plans. Now, that link at the very bottom will take you to the information page on this great offer. It will also take you to the sign-up page as well, but it's not a live link. A live link has just been posted on our chat box on the GoToWebinar column on the far right. So all you have to do is click on that, and that's a live link. That will take you to the sign-up page. And I promised you I would answer any and all of your questions. So if you do have any, please feel free to ask them. Just go to your question and answer box, and you can type in whatever is on your mind, and I will answer them to the best of my ability, okay? Okay, I have a question already. It says, do you also cover European market data? Yes, we do. It's a very good question. On our platform, we cover DAX index. We cover most of the major European markets, Asian markets, Canadian markets. So there's tons of data, okay? This also comes with our platform as well, okay? Is there any possibility to try the system a few days, or do you only offer a discount? No, we only offer the discount because the trouble is, Johan, is that, since we're an educational company, we're actually teaching you things. Now, if we were to just say, okay, why don't you try it for a couple of days? Well, you would have to know what the rules are. And if you knew what the rules were, well, then you could say, okay, I've gotten my free meal. Now I want to be comped. I don't want to pay for it after you've been fed. So we clearly can't do that because you can't unlearn the information and wipe your mind slate clean and say, well, I don't remember what the rules are anymore. Once you have the rules, you know the whole process. It wouldn't be fair to our students around the world who know these rules and are using this on a daily basis. So we can't give you a free trial. But trust me, that is a great, great deal. For $6.95, you just saw all of those examples in all of the markets. And, I'm sure over time, if you have some consistency in these setups, you will be able to recoup that small price as quickly as possible. But remember, you have to make your own decisions. It's not based on we don't tell you what to buy or sell. We don't just generate these signals and tell you, just buy this and you'll make back all your money. You have to decide, okay? Does this strategy platform contain pivot points and Knoxville divergence indicators? Thanks. No, it doesn't. We provide you with stop placement points that some are based off pivots, but those are strictly for stop placements. Remember, our strategies and systems, or I should say strategies and setups and education is based off of things that I have found that work over time. In my 4 decades, just about everything that you're trading has been around before. So just about everything you think is new or a new indicator or a new strategy or a new system has been around. It's just been rebranded. So I'm taking all that hard work out of it for you. And trust me, these are the things that have high levels of consistency, but you still have to be taught on how to use them. So if something is not available on our platform, most likely it's been around before, and the way it's used, it hasn't shown any consistency in my experience, okay? But on the platform, a lot of people are asking what else is applied on our platform. We have other pattern recognition. We have tons. We have upwards of 10 different strategies. Now, these are all different levels, hierarchies of the platform cost. But we're throwing you in on this great deal, 12 months free of the platform at a very basic level. There's so much information on there. You would be more than happy with all the information that's provided, okay? People are asking, what are the platforms that you can apply the up and down arrows to? Well, just about all the major platforms: TradeStation, Metastock, NinjaTrader. Excuse me. It can be applied with Thinkorswim, but with NinjaTrader included. Let's see, Sierra Charts, MT4. Just like I said, most of the major platforms, you can have the up and down arrows, but you won't get the availability of the platform, okay? Thomas asks, what is the renewal cost after 12 months? Well, it's your decision. Remember, once again, if you want to renew. But right now, currently, I believe the price is $97. So that's still extremely inexpensive. I know there are some platforms that are currently charging $300 a month or over, and they don't have twice the information in the Edge, I believe, that we offer. So $97 is still a great offer. You can still work with Pro Trader Strategies. Once again, they're very willing to work with all of our students, past and present, to get a great offer. So I don't want you to think that no, that's $97 per month. I don't want you to think that that cost is written in stone. You can always work and set up a payment plan. So it's really a great offer. Once again, as I've stated, I've traded platforms for $300 a month. I've traded some platforms that are close to $1,000 a month. So $97 is a great offer. And on top of that, I purchased strategies when I was struggling in systems for $3,000, $5,000 for $695. I mean, this is unbelievable. And this is something I continue to use on a daily basis. So Thomas, if you're really serious about taking your trading to the next level, I would highly consider at least just calling Pro Trader Strategies. There's absolutely no obligation. they would be more than happy to answer any question and set up some type of a payment plan with you as well, okay? Now, one last thing I did not mention, which is also included in this, and that I fail to mention a lot of times, and I'm sorry, but you also get educational correspondence with yours truly. So if you have any question, once you become a student of mine in any of our courses, in any of our platforms, you can always contact me via email, my personal email address, and I will be there to answer any question you may have. I already answered one this morning prior to this presentation. So there's always questions coming in, and I'm there right alongside with you to answer any question you may have, okay? So this is also coming with your $6.95. You'll get my personal email address to ask me questions whenever you'd like, okay? Okay, great questions. Once again, as we close, I would highly recommend you contacting Pro Trader Strategies, calling them at the number provided. They would be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have concerning the platform and concerning anything that may be available for any type of discounts or any type of payment plan available. As we close here and look at our disclaimer one last time, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And remember, please, if you have any more questions, contact Pro Trader Strategies concerning the platform. They would be more than happy to answer. That is their department. I just simply answer questions and teach all of the strategies and courses, but they would be more than happy to answer any question concerning the platform or putting together some type of payment plan. In closing, I want to thank you so much for attending today. I wish you the best of luck trading, but most especially, I look forward to all of you becoming students of mine in the strategy number 4 and the platform course. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.